I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Ann Arbor is revving up for a big year as the city celebrates its bicentennial. Concordia University kicked off the anniversary festivities by honoring the city through art embracing the past at their historic Earhart Manor.
We're really excited to welcome the community to our Moments in Time exhibit, graciously donated by a dear friend of the university, Jim Irwin.
My business is here, and then I bought a building on Main Street in 1984, and in the year 2000, expanded that building, doubled its size, and then I had all these walls on 315 North Main Street. So I decided to put together a collection, because my building had a wraparound porch and it pretty much looked like a 19th century English style mansion.
They depict some of the most important happenings in Ann Arbor and some of the most important people that made Ann Arbor what it is today.
So I thought I would start a collection of oil paintings of Ann Arbor in the 19th century. Well, we selected more than 30 buildings of impact in Ann Arbor, homes of well-known people, common areas like the firehouse, and important businesses like Allmendinger Organ Company.
Mr. Irwin spent 8 years doing the research for these paintings, and he was able to find historical photographs and commissioned Daniel Gregory, an artist from Sarasota, Florida, to depict these scenes.
He's a detail person, and he really got into historical realism through these paintings because it involves a lot of research.
When you walk around and when you hear the narration, but then really when you see with your own eyes these paintings, you're going to get a glimpse of what Ann Arbor was in its early days.
So I fell in love with Ann Arbor, particularly Ann Arbor in the 19th century. And so we ended up with a total of 34 oil paintings, large oil on canvas, all framed with the same frame.
You look back, but you also see a bit into the future as you think about how Ann Arbor has changed and maybe even how it might continue to change in the years ahead.
It's the snowy season, and there's some need-to-know information for residents and businesses alike as they keep their sidewalks safe for pedestrians. Learn about snow removal guidelines in the city of Ann Arbor in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hello, my name is Robert Keller with the City of Ann Arbor. Winter means snow and ice, and that makes it hard for people to get around the city, especially pedestrians. So as a resident and business, you need to do your part and help clear your sidewalks of ice and snow. What does that mean? Well, for residents, it means any snow accumulation greater than 1 inch has to be cleared within 24 hours. If you're a business, any snow accumulation by 6 a.m. needs to be cleared by noon the same day. So help do your part, clear your adjacent sidewalks, crosswalk ramps, and any concrete bus stops that may be adjacent to your property, and help make it easier for people to get around the great city of Ann Arbor.
Recycling in the city has seen its ups and downs throughout the years, but with the help of Recycle Ann Arbor and the implementation of their zero waste mission, we have seen the Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF, back to its intended glory, and goal is to create a more effective stream. Joining me is CEO of Recycle Ann Arbor, Bryan Ukena. Welcome back to the show, Bryan.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to be here.
You know, we last chatted in 2018. This was around the time that you started as the CEO of Recycle Ann Arbor. What kind of changes have you enacted or seen in, these last few years with recycling?
It's true. I've been here almost 5 years now, so a lot has changed and a lot of positive change. I mean, it all centers around really making Recycle Ann Arbor a zero waste organization and providing zero waste services. That's where we're firmly focused and have been for the last 5 years. But we do that through the services that we provide. Reliable, economical curbside recycling collection. So if you live in Ann Arbor and the surrounding area, your recyclables probably get picked up from Recycle Ann Arbor. We have something new, a new materials recovery facility, or ERF as they call it, where the material gets processed. I can talk a little bit more about that, but now we process our recyclables locally to their highest and best use, so people can really understand where that material goes, what it gets made into. We also have been developing and continue to develop the we call it the drop-off station, but it's the place where you can go to take your harder to recycle items and your unwanted items on Ellsworth, and really developing that, working with the city and the county to actually look at the future of potentially a new drop-off station there, but really developing those services, the amount of material that we take, the type of material that we take. We also have a recovery yard. We call it the construction demolition recovery yard, and that's where you can take your construction material, from your building or remodels, those kinds of things. You can take them to the recovery yard out on Jackson Road and drop them off. And we've really been working hard to develop markets and be able to recover some of the concrete, things like concrete, clean wood waste, shingles, things like that actually can be recovered and recycled. So working hard with that. And I think the newest thing that we've been able to implement over the last couple of years is we Recycle Ann Arbor, adjacent to the recovery yard out on Jackson Road, construction demolition facility. We purchased 18 acres, and those 18 acres we're turning into the eco park. And the eco park is a new exciting project for us, where we'll be able to pilot and then implement new programs over the next several years. So real excited about the eco park project as well. So a lot going on.
Yeah, we'll have to get back together once that eco park gets a little further along and talk a little deeper about that as it happens. It's crazy to think back in 2018 that at that time, all of our recyclables were being exported out of the town, going to, I think, Ohio at the time. And now they're all being taken care of here in the city, which is like what we always really wanted and intended to happen. What did Recycle Ann Arbor have to do to get, is it the same MRF? It's the same space that you guys just updated?
Yeah, it's the shell of the facility
Yeah.
is the same. So it's basically the outer building is the same. Everything that's inside it, up to and including all the new equipment. Recycle Ann Arbor invested over $7 million worth of our own capital, but we were also able to get about $1 million in grant funding to rebuild a state-of-the-art materials recovery facility with optic sorters and robotics and new technology that really help clean the material up and make it more recyclable. But yeah, big thing to be able to process the recyclables here, and for the local community to be able to benefit, to see that the material actually is getting recycled, which recycling industry has a bit of a black eye about people thinking that their material isn't getting recycled. So the assurance that it is getting recycled, and it's getting recycled locally to its highest and best use. And that was the investment that we made, and the development that we did was really in pursuit of creating an authentic recycling, and then a local option, so that all the benefits stay locally. All of the markets that we use that accept our material are within 200 miles of here. So we don't send stuff overseas. We know the end users. We know what the materials are getting made into. We know how they treat their workers. Again, it's a union facility, union shop. That's very different than it used to be back in the day when it was the old materials recovery facility. So we're a union shop. We pay better than living wage, thrivable wages with full benefits and retirement. And it's very much a professional development that allows us to benefit, allows the community to benefit from that. So not only is it a benefit from local economy benefits, but also like I said, the where the material goes, what it gets made into, that assurance that just gives people the assurance that it is actually getting recycled. So yeah, it's an exciting development for us.
How many jobs did you bring back to the city when you reopened the MRF?
We brought about 25 union, again, fully benefited jobs. I think the previous contractor that had the processing, even though he was in Cincinnati, Ohio, he was they were a fine contractor, but just too far away. And they used temp labor, and we were able to bring that labor back here, and again, bringing 25 union jobs to Ann Arbor.
Well, and you figure back when when we were bringing the materials to Ohio, I mean, it's not great for the environment that these trucks were having to take materials all the way to another state to be processed too.
It's a good point. Keeping your footprint as close and as local as you can is definitely, from an environmental perspective, is a big win. I think also where the material goes and what it gets made into is another huge environmental benefit, because the real benefit to recycling isn't just recycling it once, it's recycling it over and over again. So all the markets that we use, the Wapakoneta paper mill, tree-free mill, they don't use any virgin material. They use all recycled paper. They have up-to-date, state-of-the-art wastewater permits, and they treat their workers right. So also what the material gets made into is basically boxes, box board, Amazon boxes, those kinds of things. That then is back into the economy, gets made back into new paper box board within 45 days, and then it can be reused again and again, recycled again and again. So all the material that we accept here, we try to follow the same philosophy. So that's the real big environmental win.
That's an amazing thing to think about, because nowadays we get so much stuff sent to our house, so we always have a ton of boxes. So I mean, you do worry, like you're like, okay, I mean, I just got 6 boxes shipped to my house in the last day. So you're like, is this stuff really being recycled? I appreciate that you mentioned that, because I know stuff's being recycled, but that is a question on a lot of people's minds, that they think like recycling is like this phantom thing that doesn't actually happen, but it does. It's happening, and it's really happening more so, like you said, you guys made it happen. So it's really local, it's environmentally conscious. And I really like that you're talking about the workers and how important they are, and giving them benefits and more than a living wage, because all these things are very important to have a facility running the way you are.
Absolutely. I mean, I think most materials recovery facilities, recycling facilities, it's all about how many tons they can sort of push through the facility, and our secret sauce, if you want to call it that, or our real benefit, is our people. And we have some pretty fancy equipment. We have optics and robotics and things, but really what improves the quality of the material that we're able to send to our mills, and what really gives our facility its advantage, is that it's the way we treat the material, and it's the way we treat the people as the material's going through the facility. So yeah, absolutely, that's very much a value of our community here, and we want to reflect that value, and are able to do that because we're able to do it locally, as opposed to a multinational company who's beholden to shareholders and has to get a certain return on investment. Our investors are our community, and all those investments go back to the community, because we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So all of our profits and benefits get tilled back into the community, and that's what really creates that recycling benefit, because it gets a little bit washed down, and some people call it greenwashed by not handling the material in the safest way, or sending it to other countries where it maybe doesn't get handled the proper way, using temp labor as opposed to fully benefited union labor, those kinds of things. The benefits really start diminishing for recycling, and I think that's rightfully so. People are concerned about that, and people are concerned, I think, just that their material gets recycled, because there were a lot of communities with the downfall back in 2008, 2009 of the markets. They quit recycling it, and some of them accepted it at the curbside and then took it to the landfill. And
It was a
that's
lie.
just not, yeah, it was a bit of a greenwash. And so, recycling is something that kind of gets people sort of think check done. We're recycling, so it check done. And it was really taking a second look at that and saying, wait a minute, are we really recycling, and to what benefit? And that's what the city of Ann Arbor and Recycle Ann Arbor very much saw as a value to the community. So that's why we said, yeah, let's do this locally. Let's see what we can put together. So the city was able to award through a competitive process, was able to award Recycle Ann Arbor a 10-year contract, which really enabled us to be able to make the investment and do what we need to do local. And that's rare. That's not something that happens in every community. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, and I think like I don't know if it was like 2018, 2019, we were hearing all this stuff about the recyclables going to China and everything just ending up in the ocean. And I think that was a big concern for all of us, but we can only do what we can do here in Ann Arbor. And you guys are making sure that that's not happening with the stuff that we're recycling. So we can feel confident that our recyclables are going to a place where they are actually being recycled and turning into stuff that we are now using again.
Absolutely, and can be recycled again and again, because that's the real benefit of recycling,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is that it's something that we have to invest in. And so we're all part of that process. So contamination, when we really want something to be recyclable, we sometimes call it wish cycling. We put it in the recycling bin and say, man, I really want to recycle this. I'm going to put it in the bin and hope for the best. That doesn't really help us. That doesn't help us locally. It doesn't help us with recycling as a whole. If you know it's recyclable, that's the things you put in the recycling bin. The things that you're unsure about, the swimming pool, the kiddie pool, or your hose, your garden hose, or things that are plastic, and you think, oh, that toy is plastic, so it's recyclable, I'll put it in the bin. It doesn't really help us. So sort of sticking with the things that and the motto is kind of, when in doubt, leave it out. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because I want to recycle everything I possibly can,
Yeah.
but that stuff becomes contamination to the clean stuff. And really what we're about at Recycle Ann Arbor is making the cleanest material that we can that goes out our facility. We're awful proud of what we do and how we do it. And what that means is higher yield for the mills that we use. The material is better quality, so it can be recycled to a higher and better use. And so contamination can really gum up the works for our workers. Our worker safety is a huge issue.
Sure.
Plastic bags, people think, I'll just bag my recyclables, and they'll open them up when they get to the recycling facility. We handle 22 tons of material per hour. And so we can't open up every single bag, and we can't open up bags because we know there are surprises in there. And every time we open a bag and there's a syringe in there, or there's something that's dangerous, a sharp that's in there, we're putting our workers at risk. And that's part of what we do too, is operate a safe facility that's completely OSHA compliant and way above OSHA standards, because it's a very dangerous job. It's actually, the recycling and the solid waste industry is a more dangerous industry than even paramedics and firefighters. It's above that in incidents. So we really have to be concerned about worker safety. So contamination can really cause us problems with that.
Well, and that's really on our shoulders. So you mentioned about the bags, which I think is a huge thing, because I do think a lot of people have like these recycle bins. They put their garbage bag in the recycle bin, and then they just take the whole bag and throw it into their curbside. And I see
Yeah.
people do it, and I'm like, like, don't do that. But like, I think we've also seen some recent changes to our curbside. Like for years, we were able to take really bulky things, and if they fit in your cart, you'd take them. But I feel like you guys don't want that stuff anymore. You'd probably rather it go to the drop-off station if you had something along those lines.
Yeah. So first of all, I think, that was the message that went out is like, if it's plastic, put it in the bin. And the
Yeah,
plastic industry worked really hard for us so they could tell people, hey, it's plastic, it's recyclable, put it in the bin. But it was never really recyclable. That was always, and so that's what you get with Recycle Arbor is, it's authentic. If I tell you it's recyclable, then it's going to get recycled to its highest and best use. And so, it's real easy, or the tendency is to say, yeah, go ahead and put it in the bin because you get out of the hard conversation. You're just
yeah.
like, okay, go ahead and put it in. But it really does, it causes major problems. But yeah, things like bags, film, all kinds of film plastic. There's a whole lot of, $8 million worth of equipment that turns and tumbles and it runs through that and it gets all wrapped up. That film gets all wrapped up in that equipment. And literally twice a day, I have to get, people in a harness. It's a confined space. So I have to follow lots of rules around confined space. They have to get down in there and they have to literally cut those with sharp objects. They have to cut those bags out of there and pull that stuff out, which is not a safe situation.
It
So
sounds
that's the
terrible.
kind of thing that contamination can cause. But bags can be recycled. So again, like you mentioned, you can take them to our drop-off station where those materials are kept separate. So that's a really good point, and I think you make that just because an item is recyclable doesn't mean it's recyclable in your recycling cart.
Hmm.
Another real good example is lithium ion batteries, those batteries that you put on your cordless drill or whatever it is. Those things are recyclable. They have a big chasing arrow on the bottom of them, and you can recycle them, but not in your cart. When you put those in your cart, and it isn't about scolding people that they're doing the wrong thing. It's just, I mean, it makes perfect sense. You look on the bottom of the
Sure.
battery, and it's got the giant chasing arrow, and it's like, great, I can put that in my cart. It's plastic, but actually, those lithium ion batteries are a huge safety concern for us, and it makes our insurance go way up because there are so many fires at the materials recovery facilities, and puts our workers at a lot of risk because when you run over those things with heavy equipment, or when they run through that heavy equipment, they release all of their energy at once, and so that causes a flame up and a fire. And if you can imagine, 80% of what we bring in is paper. And so we're very, very aware and have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in detection equipment to make sure those fires are detected and put out. But you think, oh, it's got the chasing arrow on it, let's just put
Yeah.
it in the cart. But really, the drop off station and with lithium ion batteries, taking it to Lowe's or Home Depot or one of the places that actually can accept those items, it's appropriate to recycle them there, but not in the cart. So not everything that's recyclable can go in the cart.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, it's not a nagging thing. I think that sometimes people can think like, oh, you're giving me too much, like it's just too much information. But it's really a knowledge is power kind of thing. You need to know. I do question sometimes. I'm like, can this be recycled? And I do have a tendency to throw it in the trash if I question it, especially because like I have kids, so like I do have plastic toys that you throw away, and then I think about this has multiple materials on it. Like it's like these questions that it's not just plastic. There's other things involved in this toy or whatever it might be. And I'm like, this
Well,
can't be
yeah.
recycled properly if you'd have to take it apart piece by piece and get the plastic out of it.
Well,
Like
and
not in the curbside, not when you're just having people sort it through those machines.
yeah, that's one method of recycling, is putting it single stream altogether. But there are other methods like the drop off station and that. But that's a really good point, and I think. I don't think I haven't talked to one person who isn't confused, including me. I've been doing this 35 years. I get new packaging here, new packaging types literally weekly. And one of the sorters will bring it in and say, look at this one, man, here's a new one. And so we get that every single week. If you can imagine getting that, how can we educate people? Oh, you can do this, but you can't do this. And it's multi-layered plastic, and so really the onus is not just on the citizen, which I think some of us have been made to feel a bit guilty that we don't quite have enough knowledge, or we haven't done enough to research whether that item is recyclable or not. But the industry has done nothing but reinforce, hey, there's the chasing arrow on the bottom, it's recyclable, put it in your bin,
Yeah.
because they want it to be put in the recycling bin. They don't want it to be put in the garbage bin. They don't want to be the last thing when you open your garbage can up and you look in there and you see their brand. That's not what they want to see. They want to be seen as the green organization. So they're very encouraged for that material to appear to be recyclable, even though it's not recyclable. And that is an absolute greenwash, and that has to stop. And that's what's causing this confusion. A lot of people say, recycling is broken and there's a crisis of recycling, but it's not a crisis of recycling. It's a crisis of single-use plastic packaging. We get new single-use plastic packaging like I said, every week I get a new item, and it's the onus is on it needs to be shared with the organization or the designer of that and the manufacturer of that, so they don't just stamp the chasing arrow on the bottom and say it's erroneously recyclable. That's not fair to us as citizens. You're making it harder for us, not easier for us. So
way more confused. Yes,
it's way more confusing. And so I think, people ask, what have you done to, education wise to make it clearer and easier for people to understand recycling? And that's the work that needs to be done. And that's the work that we're doing, is bringing the manufacturers in and saying, here's what problems this causes when you just stamp a chasing arrow on the bottom, or your container doesn't fit through our system, or it's not a resin that's recyclable, so it contaminates our other materials. So we do a lot of work and policy work around extended producer responsibility is what it's called. And you'll hear this term more and more as time goes by, Dan. It's a big issue with recycling and with sustainability is the producer, the manufacturer, the brand of that product needs to be involved in how it first making sure it's truthfully recyclable, and then secondly, it's designed properly, and then thirdly, right now all the cost of recycling falls right on us as residents and as the city. And so the producers are like, yeah, go ahead, put more stuff in the recycling bin or whatever, but it just comes down on us to be able to find the equipment to recycle that. Every time we add a new item, it's a $500,000 piece of equipment that we have to purchase. So they have to be involved in the financial responsibility of making those products easily recyclable. Once they're involved in that loop, then they're financially incented to do the right thing with that material and recycle it. So extended producer responsibility is something that we work on a lot. And working with producers, we have MCOR, a number of manufacturers that come through the facility, see how the material gets recycled, and really see it as a laboratory, see our materials recovery facility as a laboratory, so they can say, does our K-Cup really go through that system, and does it really get recycled? But also, what is the recycler thinking? So we can sort of, as Recycle Ann Arbor, stand on the top of the pile of recyclables. We can look upstream and we can say, hey, we need to talk to the manufacturers about all this stuff we're just standing at the end of the tailpipe. That's no fun. We need to crawl up that tailpipe and see how that material is designed and really engage with them. But we can also look downstream. So, okay, we've got it. We've got a Coke bottle. Now what do we do to it? By God, you better make sure it gets recycled to its highest and best use. And so that's when we look downstream to the markets and say, how's it going to get recycled again and again? So big issue around education, but really truth in recycling is the key to lessening that confusion with the average resident.
Well, Bryan, we're out of time. I want to thank you for coming on the show, but I also would love to, down the road, maybe a couple months from now, continue this conversation, because I think there's still a lot more to talk about. But I want to thank you again for being a guest on FYI.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dana.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN, visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.